Hello everyone and welcome to the Tesla Truth. Today we're going to go over a video by Gali, who made a video about Tesla's Q2 2020 earnings. And we're going to go piece by piece over the video and take a look at everything that he says, all his claims, everything that he says Tesla claims, and then debunk basically everything that he's been saying. Because practically every single claim that he makes is either misconstrued, false, or deceiving. So let's start with this first tidbit where Gali seems to think that conference calls are places to learn about business.
Just another example of why listening to company conference calls are a masterclass in learning about business.
So that's pretty funny because a conference call typically is a way for a company to announce and discuss some more about its business. Now, of course, they could give you a good idea of what's happening, but the reality is that, as often is the case, companies are there to try and put a best foot forward and basically try and make you feel like the business is good. Now, it depends on the management team, depends on a lot of factors. I can tell you unequivocally that in the case of Tesla, Tesla is basically trying to paper over a lot of issues, although they do mention some of them. But I can tell you Gali completely misses the point and doesn't even take a look at all the issues that are brought up by management.
Execution, and to watch Tesla's business model and financials unfold in real time, get to hear from the management team, Elon Musk, CFO Zach Kirkhorn, Drew Baglino, just an unbelievable opportunity. So I'm going to break down first what the financials were, go through the conference call, all of this new information. The biggest news potentially that dropped is the confirmation of the Austin Gigafactory or Terrafactory, which is going to be epic. We've been just so much to cover. Anyway.
So this is where the fun starts, and Gali's talking about the new Tesla factory in Austin, which Tesla announced. And of course, he calls it the Gigafactory and the Terrafactory. Now, what's funny to note here is that Giga typically was a reference to a factory basically producing gigawatts of batteries, so tons of batteries. And of course, they call it Terra now because they're expecting to exceed that. But the piece that Gali doesn't actually mention is the fact that the Tesla factory in Austin is actually going to be smaller square feet. So the area is going to be a lot smaller than actually the factory in Fremont. So it's going to be making either less cars or batteries, of a mix of both. You know, who really knows? They haven't really given any information about that. But this factory is not exactly what they're trying to make it seem. And there's a bunch of other claims that are completely ridiculous.
Let's just get into it. Welcome to the world of hypercharts. Here we are with vehicle deliveries. These were already out at the end of the quarter. We have estimated Model Y here. So that's why you're seeing that here at about 15,000 or so deliveries for the quarter, just an estimate.
So right off the bat here, Gali is talking about the quarterly deliveries. And as you can see from his own chart, the deliveries Tesla announced are basically flat. Tesla is not growing. There's no exponential growth here or anywhere else for that matter. And we'll discuss a lot of that in either other videos or later. Gali's own data even shows that the Model Y has basically been replacing lost Model 3, meaning the Model Y is cannibalizing, or basically it's dropped and it's trying to, that they had to rush this vehicle in order to make up for the drop in the Model 3 itself. Either one of those is terrible for a company that claims that it keeps growing and growing. I mean, even Gali has this data right in front of his eyes. But of course, he acts as if this is fantastic, this is great, nothing's wrong, and everything's going to be just fine. Obviously, we know that that's not the case.
Tesla reported. This is what that translated to revenue-wise, just over that 6 billion mark, as you can see.
Here's another fun chart from Gali, which shows you Tesla's revenues. Now, the revenues, as you can see, have stagnated. The revenues aren't growing if they've been basically flat. And they've been flat in the face of Tesla pulling all kinds of levers. For example, R&D spending is down. I realize that doesn't count into revenues, but Tesla is pulling all the levers in revenue as far as dumping cars all over the place, lowering prices, etc., etc. And of course, that the Tesla bulls are going to claim that, oh, it's all COVID-19, the factory was shut down. But the reality is, if you look at the plots, revenues have basically not budged since around fourth quarter of 2018. I mean, we're talking about basically 2 years, and this company has not even gotten close to what they promised investors. Of course, all these people are getting excited about all kinds of new vehicles. You know, back then, nobody even thought about the Model Y. The Model Y was something that came up with, and as we saw from the previous chart, it's probably was done because it was a small enough incremental improvement to the Model 3 that probably didn't require as much R&D. But basically, it's a vehicle that was designed to try and take advantage of the fact that U.S. consumers like larger cars. They're not in favor of sedans. Sedans is not what the typical U.S. consumer wants. And so, you know, they're trying to capitalize on that and build a car that's a little bit bigger. But still, revenues are just a disaster for a company like this. Don't believe the excuses.
Quarter from Tesla, and then operating income profitability actually going up from last quarter to 327 million, a huge swing from the 167 million dollar loss in the Q2 of last year. So, you know, despite this global pandemic, despite Tesla's factory being shut down for over a month, the company reported a $27 million operating profit, a $500 million swing in operating income.
Oh, this is another fun one. So Gali basically is trying to sell the idea that Tesla's state has improved. And while the top line may show that, the reality is that all of those things, basically all the profit that was gained this quarter, Q2, was basically due to the EV credits. If the EV credits were not there, Tesla would not have declared any profit, would have lost quite a bit of money. So what basically happened here, and a lot of people believe this is the case, Tesla basically recognized a bunch of EV credit revenues. And they recognized them in Q2, in part to try and probably make the 4 quarters that are needed for S&P 500 inclusion. So you need 4 quarters to be included. It's one of the criterias. It's not necessary that Tesla is going to actually be included. I mean, it's just speculation on the part of the Tesla bulls and one of the stories that they sell. But the other thing that you should note is, although they do have 4 quarters of gains, it's very important to note that those 4 quarters are actually spread around 2 years. And so, you know, it's very easy to take 2 different fiscal years and basically have 2 quarters with gains in 1 year, but have 2 other quarters of losses, as you can see from the chart, right? And those are much larger. The losses are much larger than the gains. And then on the other year, to do the same, meaning Q1 and Q2 may look good in, you know, as far as they pulled all the levers to try and make it profitable. But Q3 and Q4 can be huge losses. I mean, it depends on what Tesla is going to do. So don't believe the hype. All of this is just Tesla playing around with the numbers. Of course, Gali never addresses any of that. He takes Tesla's statements at face value. He's very good friends with Elon Musk, and Elon Musk knows how to play him like a puppet, basically. So let's keep going and take a look at some of the other things that he claims, that he says, all the ridiculous stuff.
Net, Tesla was able to actually trim costs during this period, and that's why we see the OPEX actually going down sequentially, R&D falling off pretty significantly here, the lowest since 2017. I'd expect that to pick back up pretty quickly. SG&A did go up sequentially, though, so that's what we got for operating expenses.
So this chart is very, very interesting, and the reason for it is that what you see is that Tesla is cutting R&D expenses. And by the way, Gali is addressing only Q2 Q2 of this year. But in reality, you can see that Tesla R&D expenses have been pretty flat and kind of trending down for quite a long time. I mean, even before the coronavirus really hit. And does that jive with a company who's unleashing new technologies and revolutionizing the world, or does that seem closer to a company that's basically trying to cut every single expense to the bone? I think that's pretty clear. I mean, R&D spending for a company like this should be increasing, and if the profits really are being plowed into the company in order to, create all of these new products, R&D should be increasing, and it's not. And that is telling you something. Tesla has cut to the bone. They're not overspending. They're not even keeping spending as it was before. Rather, they are simply trying to survive, and who knows what their thinking is as far as trying to keep going with all this.
In here, so you can see that continually being ramping. And you might be like, whoa, they're about to ramp to where they were in 2017, 1.244 billion. But this was in the Model 3 ramp. This is when Tesla, no offense, sucked at manufacturing. Now they are so good at it. They have improved dramatically in the 3 years. This financially is translated into a significantly reduced amount of capex per unit of production. And that's why we're seeing Tesla expand Model Y in Fremont, basically build up as the size of the Model 3 production line that they did in 2017 in Fremont, and start building Berlin and ramp China, all at this, and probably do some capex at Nevada for future batteries, all at the same time. CapEx is still here at 546 million, just half of where it was during that Model 3 ramp.
So let me understand this straight. Tesla is expanding in all directions. They're starting multiple other factories, multiple other lines. They have the Model Y, and now they're probably they're working on the Tesla Semi and the Cybertruck. But their expenses are less than what it was for only the first initial product, which was the Model 3, basically. Does that seem logical in any way? Of course not. Basically, what's happened is, first of all, the Model 3 rollout was perhaps the biggest disaster in the history of manufacturing, and I want to emphasize that. Okay, Elon Musk went against the recommendation of all of his people and ignored them because he needed to ramp up really quickly because things were not looking good. And that ramp up was so bad that Elon Musk himself admitted that Tesla was a few weeks away, single-digit weeks away from bankruptcy. So that's how bad it was. So sure, they'll improve. But the expenditures still don't make sense. This is a company that's supposed to be growing. And if the expenditures don't track that way, then it doesn't make any sense. Now, there is China in play, and we can talk about China either now or in another episode, but Tesla doesn't own Tesla China. Despite what you've been led to believe, Tesla got everything from the Chinese government, and those are the real owners of Tesla China. And those guys can come in and take Tesla's factory over there anytime they basically want to. Okay, there's clauses in the contracts that basically allow them to take over the factory and do whatever they want. And of course, the contracts are written to where Chinese law dictates the contract, and Chinese courts also are the venue where any lawsuit or any problem are going to be resolved. Now, let me ask you this. Who are those courts going to help? Are they going to help the government of China, or are they going to help a foreign enterprise like Tesla? I think you know the answer if you've dealt with China for any significant period of time. Of course, it's the government of China. So forget about it. Never mind that, as Montana Skeptic showed, Tesla is actually required to deposit all revenues into accounts controlled by the Chinese government so that they get their first cut, and whatever is left over, if there's anything left over, Tesla gets. And obviously they're not getting anything right now because they're not even meeting those levels of revenue. So yeah, this company is basically not spending enough money to keep things up. In fact, I think some of the expenses were below depreciation levels. So to explain that to you, tools and other things depreciate, they lose value over time, and at some point, once they end their useful life, you're supposed to replace them, and you're supposed to account for that. Because you know that that's going to be coming. If you keep using that tool and it loses completely its value, you come and replace it. Well, Tesla was actually spending below those levels in previous quarters, and I haven't checked this quarter, but that's how terrible it is. They're literally not keeping up with the maintenance that's needed. One perfect example for that is the Model S and X molds. Tesla never got new molds. They've been using the same molds well past beyond the useful lifetime of the mold, which every mold has. That means quality degradation. That means a ton of issues. And the very simple reason they're doing it is they don't have enough cash. Despite what they're going to tell you that they have $8 billion in the bank, et cetera, that's actually not true. Okay, a lot of that cash is held in China. A lot of that cash is needed to pay the vendors. Tesla plays a lot of tricks with how they account for that cash, which miraculously appears probably in one account at a single point which they report, and then it all goes where it needs to go in order for it to be used to pay suppliers and all those kind of things. So, the Tesla does not spend anywhere near what it should be in order to maintain, in order to even be that exponential growth company that they claim to be. I mean, that's the ridiculous thing. I forget about even sustaining operations. They're not anywhere near what they should be in order to grow, and other legacy auto OEMs are spending far and above in R&D and other things compared to Tesla in EVs and other things. That is not good news for Tesla.
So that's why this bump was a little bit bigger. But the point being here, Tesla ended the quarter with almost $9 billion in cash, a record amount of cash in the bank account for the company, putting them in a very strong strategic financial position to not be at risk of going bankrupt, to be able to do everything they want to do, to be able to fund all of their new factories and growth, and do all of that while still having money pile up in the bank account is a really good feeling for me as a shareholder in Tesla.
Yes, the Tesla cash position that I was mentioning before. So obviously, Gali completely misses the details of that cash.
Solvency to get capital to fund the business. That's no longer the case. Tesla's funding themselves internally. This is a massive inflection point in the company. The chance of them achieving their mission of transitioning the world to electric vehicles and clean energy is, went from 30, 40, 50% chance to like a 90% chance.
So as always, Gali's may be somewhat entertaining, but he completely misses the point. Tesla may show a good balance of cash in their accounts. The reality is much more different than some of the estimates that a few people like Montana skeptics have done. Is that Tesla may have only about $3 or $4 billion dollars of actual cash that they can use. I mean, there's a lot that could be that would need to be paid to suppliers. They just struck a deal with Panasonic to maybe shift some of it a little bit. But they're going to have to pay that at some point. I mean, these things, you can only push the can down the road so much. But the other thing that's just hilarious is that Gali now says that basically Tesla will have a profit every single quarter in order to fund operations. But what he completely fails again to say is that the profit that they just had was 100% because of the sales of EV credits, and that's not going to continue. For example, Fiat told everyone that they're only paying $1.1 billion or $1.2 billion in EV credits until 2023. So you have to split that up. Let's assume that Fiat was the only company, and we know right now, at least right now, that's the only company that we've seen that is buying credits. And so Tesla already recognized up to Q2 of 2020 about 700 million of that. Okay, there's not a lot left. There's about 500 million that are gonna need to be split across 2 quarters that are coming up. So obviously, if they only have, let's say, about 250 million of gains, imagine this quarter, Q2, they barely made 100 million. If suddenly that amount of 400 million in EV credit sales become about 200, that 100 million doesn't exist anymore. It's gone, and they're gonna be not even breaking even. They're gonna be losing money. Let's not forget that this is EV credits. EV credits are not Tesla's main business. Selling cars and making money off of cars is, and maybe ancillary things attached to a car, that's fine. EV credits are a crutch that they're currently selling, and it's a crutch that's going to go away as more and more competitors begin selling their own vehicles, and they don't need Tesla's credits anymore.
Moving to energy generation deployed, this was kind of another weak point in the quarter. I mean, we knew Tesla Energy was going to be weak, but energy generation goes from 35 megawatts to 27, down sequentially, even down from the all-time low of 29 in Q2 2019. So this was kind of a bummer, but there was a really dope tidbit in the shareholder letter, which is that solar roof installations tripled from Q1 to Q2. Remember, that's, to me, the exciting part of this. Every single roof is going to have solar. 5 million roofs sold a year in the US. They cost about a model.
Well, that's nice. Gali is finally showing us some actual data that's actually real, and that's about the Tesla solar roofs. And if you follow Tesla charts on Twitter, you'll know that he has basically the same chart that shows the same thing, which is solar roof deployment by Tesla has kept falling off a cliff, and basically doesn't exist, and Tesla is nowhere near anywhere significant. Which is funny because all the bulls keep saying, oh my God, Tesla solar, everybody wants solar, et cetera, but the numbers keep falling off. And they'll give a bunch of excuses about how, the initial products weren't as appealing and all that. And the reality is obviously a lot more complex. The Tesla solar roofs, they cost a lot of money, and they got multiple types. And so it's another ridiculous point by Gali that suddenly that energy is going to grow and all that. The numbers are exactly the opposite. The numbers are showing that Tesla is not growing in this area. And why would that be? I mean, aren't they supposed to be the kings in this area? I mean, Solar City had been in the business for years and years, and you can actually see that the increase in the charts where they go up, that's actually Solar City. In Tesla charts chart, he shows exactly where Elon did the unveiling of the Tesla solar roof in 2016. By the way, that was 4 years ago. Where is all that? After the unveiling of this revolutionary product, deployments have gone down. So what's up with that? I think you know what's up with that. Tesla is basically lying. If you followed the Solar City court case and you saw the depositions, Elon Musk basically said, I'm sitting on top of a pyramid scheme. Those are his words. And if one piece of it falls, all of it collapses. Okay? It's a pyramid scheme. Plain and simple.
I think, Elon Musk reiterated on the conference call that the energy business would eventually be as big as the automotive business, or that's how big the opportunity is.
Yes, Gali. Things are looking so rosy for Tesla in the energy sector that they keep installing less and less solar everywhere. That's how good things are, and that's how good things are going, because it looks like customers are not validating what Tesla has to offer. And a lot of it is because Tesla solar is prohibitively expensive compared to the alternatives. And this whole thing about installing it in 8 hours, we literally have people who had the solar panels or the solar roof installed in their homes, and these are Tesla supporters, and they basically explained that it took weeks to install. Okay, so the costs here are exorbitant, and Tesla is nowhere near where they should be, and they're basically losing market share like crazy. They barely even exist in this area. It's all just hype.
That I thought was extremely interesting was that for the trailing 12 months, our GAAP operating margin reached nearly 5%. We expect our operating margin will continue to grow over time, ultimately reaching industry-leading levels. So 5% operating margin already in there with car companies like Ford and GM, but Tesla's saying we're going to keep improving this over time to hit industry-leading levels. What does that mean? We'll get to more of that on the conference call.
So this is another hilarious omission by Gali. Maybe he didn't realize it. Maybe he wasn't paying close attention. During the conference call, one of the analysts actually asked Tesla and actually pointed out that this 5% is actually more like 1% because 4% were coming directly from the EV credits and other things. So Gali completely misses the point. And of course, as a Tesla bull and a Elon shill, basically, he looks at that statement of we are going to achieve industry leading levels. Yeah, every company says that. I mean, that's not unusual. Every company says we're gonna do better than the industry, and we want to do better than the industry. The question is whether they actually do it. And what we can see from Tesla is that no, they don't. They don't do it. That these percentages and these earnings are basically all financially engineered. So Gali is always missing the point, and he does not dive anywhere near where the truth is. I mean, he does not go and look up at the details. He just looks at the top line numbers, and that's it.
The Model 3 and Y, so there's so many similar parts, it would make a ton of sense for Tesla to actually convert some Model 3 lines to Model Ys. The Model Y becomes a better selling car, cannibalizing it. They're tight on space at Fremont. I'm really curious to see how much flexibility there is there in terms of that production for Tesla.
So there's something that apparently Gali doesn't know. The Model Y has been manufactured at Fremont in the tent and not in one of the main lines. And apparently one of the reasons for that is that the Model Y actually doesn't fit. You can't actually manufacture it. So Gali is completely wrong and off, and I'm not sure why. Either he's lying or he doesn't actually track things the way that he's supposed to. But yeah, Tesla basically uses the tent, and they switch between manufacturing the Model Y and the Model 3. And apparently, what we've been hearing recently is that they switched back to the Model 3. Funny enough, Gali also seems to imply very correctly that the Model Y is basically cannibalizing Model 3. You may remember Elon Musk saying that the Model 3 was going to make Tesla all the money that it would ever need. I guess that's no longer the case. I guess now they need other vehicles because the plan has basically gone off the rails and is into a ditch right now. And now everybody's talking about the Model Y and this and that. Interesting question. Elon Musk told us how many reservations there were for the Model 3. He told us how many reservations there were for the Cybertruck. He never said anything about the Model Y. Why would that be? I mean, if this vehicle is going to sell so well, why would you not tell us what the reservations are? And the truth is, some calculations that Tesla Q has done seem to imply that the Model Y sales are around 20,000, something like that. I think that was Q1. The Model Y sales are nowhere near where they should be, despite the fact that they keep claiming that Model Y sales are going to be much, much better than Model 3. The reality is they're not. A lot of customers seem to be burning out of the Tesla ecosystem. The vehicles are just expensive. They're more expensive than other comparable vehicles that are coming. Tesla lost the EV credits in the US and basically has nothing really to show for it. So things are not going to be going well. And if you think that the Model Y is going to be selling great in Europe, take a look at the kind of vehicles that Europeans typically buy in mass. They're much smaller vehicles, attuned, the cities in Europe are typically much smaller. The houses are smaller. The Model Y is just not the kind of vehicle that people would buy in mass. Some people buy it, others won't. Although if you take a look at Norway and what has happened, Tesla's basically taken a complete dive and is slowly disappearing from their ranking of EV sales. And they're being upended by other manufacturers.
They throw in this funny little chart of the Model S versus the Porsche Taycan premium sedan EPA range. Also Model X and Y range versus the competition. Once again, range going to be the biggest metric stat.
So Gali seems to think that the chart is pretty funny. But like always, there's a lot more to it. So now you're going to see a chart that was compiled by Inside EVs and basically shows what the real world range is versus what's claimed for each manufacturer. And what you're going to see is that Tesla completely misleads with its EPA numbers. However they do it, the EPA doesn't test every number. Tesla actually, the manufacturer, submits the EPA numbers, and the EPA, in most cases, takes it. Sometimes they do some testing, apparently, but the EPA is not testing every single number. Not only that, Tesla is the one that supplies the samples, the vehicles that are used for testing. And just like VW before it, it's entirely possible, and all the evidence seems to suggest that they're actually lying on those numbers. Inside EVs seem to indicate exactly that. Take a look at the other manufacturers. The numbers that they put out basically track with the real numbers. But Tesla's, they overpromise and underdeliver. So that's one of the main, arguments that the lemmings have is the Tesla range. They have such an advantage in range that nobody's ever going to want another vehicle. But as we can see, that's actually not the case. The range that Tesla actually delivers versus what it promises seems to have a lot of problems. And if you follow Tesla Motor Club forums, or if you follow Twitter, you're going to see a lot of people that basically say, hey, Tesla promised me X amount of range, and I'm not getting anywhere near that. And Tesla basically tells them to pound sand. So that's the reality. Okay, as far as range, the Tesla range advantage is ephemeral and made up of a ton of lies.
Call. Elon Musk opened it up with his opening remarks per usual. Says his huge thank you to the Tesla team. This is my favorite part about Elon Musk and Tesla is that he really every single conference call goes out of his way to be like, thanks to the Tesla team, exceptional execution. Everybody worked their ass off. I'm so proud to be working with these people. They're amazing. Like literally shouting out, giving credit to the squad. First part of every conference call. Love that sort of ethos that they have. Automotive industry down 30%.
So this part of the discussion is funny if it weren't so sad, because Elon Musk congratulating the team. Well, if you weren't aware, Elon Musk forced everybody to go back to work a week early against Alameda County orders, and basically is putting everybody at risk. There are multiple employees that have basically been fired because they were trying to get safer working conditions for the people that manufacture. Because when you're making these vehicles, you can't get 6 feet of social distancing. Even if you're wearing masks. There've been some articles that basically describe the fact that you're not getting away from people. You're right next to each other. You're using the same tools. The rates of infection have increased. In fact, there were some other articles stating exactly that Tesla is hiding the number of COVID-19 infections that occurred, that they're lying about the fact that there were supposedly only 10 caused by their vague definition of on the job, etc., etc. So Tesla definitely hiding that because they don't want any backlash. The other sad part is the fact that while Elon thanks the workers, he literally told everybody they're canceling bonuses and other things. And the reason for doing that is to save money, because contrary to what Gali and Tesla claim, Tesla's cash position is not strong enough, and they are cutting everything to the bone. Employee bonuses was one thing that they cut, and basically the workers are getting screwed. And by the way, Tesla has been known for years. It's a very low salary company. They pay, I think it was below California average. It's really low, especially compared to what you would consider even other tech companies and non-tech companies. They pay well below. So taking away this money from employees that are taking further risks and literally fueling your company. These employees work insane under conditions that are extremely hard. If you haven't followed the saga of the Tesla tent, every single report out of it and the pictures that we've seen it's a disaster. People have gotten hurt. Tesla ignores those things. People have gotten hurt. They're working under very difficult conditions and heat and all that. Tesla employee one, who's a whistleblower that basically just showed up yesterday as of the time of the recording of this video, basically was saying that the paint shop was even worse, that the paint shop is terrible. So, Elon thanks his employees the way that a slave master apparently thanks his slaves, because that's what he thinks of them, basically. And he's been screwing them all along, doesn't allow them to unionize, etc., etc. So Gali completely misses every single reality about the Tesla operation, and basically takes Elon Musk's word for it, and the pleasantries that Musk, says to kind of thank the team and all that. Obviously, a lot of them have left, so the new people may not always know what happened before them.
Our deliveries are up, and then he starts it by dropping a bomb, saying we are going to build our new U.S. factory. It's in the works. We're planning it. It's going to be in Austin. It's going to be 2,000 acres, our biggest space we've ever purchased of any factory. Still terafactory potential, in my opinion, based on that sizing. It's going to be an ecological paradise. It's on the Colorado River. There's going to be a river boardwalk open to the public. I mean, think about the future and what makes you excited and what you want to see and what, companies should be doing to make life better and more exciting and fun. And it's just like, of course we should have a car factory that also makes the land around it more beautiful and natural and people can visit. Anyway, huge.
So again, the Tesla factory in Austin, yes, by land area that they get, it's probably going to be the biggest. The reality is that the factory floor itself, I think, is slightly smaller than Fremont, as per some reports. So it's definitely not going to be the biggest in any way. And if you think that, like Musk says, it's going to be an ecological paradise, I want you to see this image of the Tesla Fremont factory, and you tell me. And if you compare it to the operations of Ford, of VW, of any of those companies, you'll notice the fact that Tesla is literally the worst of them all. So for now to come and say that it's going to be an ecological paradise, they're literally gaslighting everyone. Okay, that's what they're doing, because it's a complete and utter lie. Tesla has never demonstrated that it can operate properly, safely, soundly, as far as environmental goes, as far as employee safety. I mean, the stories from Sparks, Nevada, where the factory for the batteries are just horrific. I mean, we're talking about drug use and deaths, and things falling into the battery chemicals and things like that. I mean, Tesla is literally gaslighting. It has the worst record, I think, in the automotive industry of operating. It's just incredible that Gali even thinks that this point is true. He probably never saw the pictures from Paul that show the factory.
Then I thought it was funny, he gives a shout out to the Tesla Tulsa team, or the Tulsa governor, who basically tried to court Tesla for the factory. He says, we're going to consider expanding in Tulsa in the future. Huge thank you to them. So I thought,
indeed, Gali. Thanks a lot to the governor of Oklahoma and his team, who were dummies and didn't realize that they were getting played. Because we've known for a while now that Tesla was going to Austin. Fred Lambert basically divulged that Tesla was going to Austin, and he basically released this information. And of course, then suddenly everybody started attacking him, because what had happened was he destroyed Tesla's ability to negotiate. So what Tesla was doing was playing Oklahoma against Texas to try and get better concessions in Austin. Oklahoma was never in the running. And if you saw that picture of Musk that basically shows him sitting in this makeshift tent in the middle of nowhere, and then you saw that picture of Oklahoma painting that statue or whatever that was of a man with the Tesla colors, you realize how desperate of an act that was to try and secure Tesla. Tesla was never going to Oklahoma. I don't think Oklahoma really has the things that Tesla needs. And Tesla was already in such advanced discussions with Texas that it didn't make sense. But Tesla needed to basically play them against each other, try and get as many concessions as they could. So, of course, thank you, Oklahoma, because you helped Elon Musk. And I'm sure Elon is very happy with Fred, given that he almost burned the play there.
Then he goes on to really triple down on solar. Basically what I said earlier, that Tesla's really pushing here to be the cheapest, low-cost option, lowest price guarantee. They even have like a refund system. So they're really, really trying to push this solar product now. I feel like Elon Musk thinks they're starting to get close to product market fit with the retrofit and the roof. And they seem to be going, fully accelerating here.
Yes, Elon believes so much about the product market fit and how things are going that he's basically reducing the price of everything in order to capture more customers. Because, that's how business works, right? When there's more demand for your product, you lower the prices, right? Of course not. Tesla is desperately reducing prices. Their costs, as I noted earlier, I think were double or triple some of the cost of, just a normal company that basically sells solar for your roof. And so Tesla had to come down. Otherwise, they would not get, with the exception of a few people who basically have plenty of money and don't care, which are the minority, the vast majority of consumers would not see the benefit. It's also very interesting that, Tesla provides all these guarantees like they usually do. So, for example, these guarantees look very similar to the return the car in 7 days guarantee that Tesla provides. If you know anything about that guarantee, it has a lot of caveats. And one of the things that Tesla does is, even though a customer has gotten the car and returned it, they'll still sell it as new. There's some discussion that they may be rolling back the odometers. I think we saw on Twitter one of those cases. There's a lot of lemons. So one of the big things that Tesla does, highly illegal, is basically resell vehicles that have problems that have been returned as lemons, as if they were fine, and basically trying to launder the lemons that way. To find customers that basically ignore those problems. So the Tesla incentives are, despite what they'll tell you, are not an indicator that Tesla itself is successful or that things are going well. Rather, they're incentives intended to push metal, whether it's car metal or solar, any way that they can in order to show success. And that's perhaps the biggest problem that that Gali and the other Tesla bulls have, which is they don't realize that in order to be a successful company, you have to be able to sell product that's good and find enough demand at a price where you can still make a profit. And that's not easy. Despite the fact of what Elon says and despite what Gali says, doing those things are not easy. And worse is Tesla hasn't achieved them, because they continue to lower the prices. They continue to offer incentives that they say would kill the company, literally. They keep offering them back again because they have to keep playing this game of balancing, of how much are we willing to cut in order to spur demand and make sure that we keep going so that the numbers match what Wall Street is expecting. Because when Wall Street starts getting numbers that they don't like, and they're kind of getting them, but they're not paying too much attention to them. But once they really start going and they're not getting it, things are going to take a turn for the worst. And that's just reality.
That he's using this alpha build of software at his house that will allow him to almost drive all the way home from the office, from I guess Elon's house to Tesla, with almost zero interventions in the wild. And this is an alpha version of the software that no one has. And he's like, this is why I'm confident in FSD functionality, because I'm driving it, which gotta love Elon testing the product.
So this is another one of those lies that Gali believes, and he doesn't understand the complete context. So yeah, apparently Elon has a special version of FSD or whatever it is in his vehicle that he's using. But think about this. You want to tell me that a feature that needs to be mass deployed, widely deployed in multiple scenarios, is good and working because it works in the vehicle of one man who has interest in making sure that this feature comes to light? Is that the way that we're releasing FSD? Is that the way a consumer is going to trust that this is going to work? Of course not. This is ridiculous. The FSD feature has been talked about for years. Elon Musk has promised FSD complete multiple times, and then they turn around, and they start saying, well, we're rewriting the code base. We need to change it from, I don't know if it was Python to C or something like that. This complete crock, people. FSD does not exist in the way that people think of. If you've driven a Tesla, and I know that's enhanced autopilot or autopilot, this thing hits everything and doesn't work. Every single demo of FSD that we've seen has been canned. Okay, that was Tesla employee one also confirmed that was in 2016. That was all canned, and there was a ton of problems there. FSD simply, companies like Waymo. Okay, so Waymo is much far ahead than Tesla. Tesla is at the back of the pack, as Navigant says, as other professionals in the area say. Tesla is behind the pack. The things that they're doing were already proven to be very problematic years ago for those manufacturers. Tesla R&D spending obviously shows that they're not investing enough. They invent all these excuses that people listen to about the dojo and all these systems that are supposed to provide Tesla with a clear advantage.
So in my fully charged presentation in Austin, ironically, I gave this theory that I was like, in 5 years, Tesla's best-selling car will be a car that they haven't announced yet, the Model 2, the compact $25,000 vehicle, and they haven't talked about that much.
I want you to take a look at that chart and just marvel at the ability of Gali to basically project things, even 10 years out, when they haven't been able to project the next quarter. Okay, these people are not serious. Okay, they're inventing this Model 2 and they're projecting all kinds of things. They're ignoring the competition that's already coming and destroying Tesla in Norway, in Germany, Europe, the stagnation of sales in the US. I mean, these charts are intended literally to lie to people. They're intended to deceive people, to show them, look at this tremendous growth potential, when in fact they haven't even hit really any of the goals that they've said. Of course, they'll claim that they'll hit here and there, but the reality is when you go into it, they basically engineered their financials, their numbers. They've done all kinds of things to where they get some short-term advantage in order to look like they hit the goals, when in fact they don't, and long-term they get hurt. So that's what it is. Don't believe these charts. These charts are completely bunk, and they're estimating things that they can't possibly estimate. They're basically, take a look at 2020 compared to what they got, and these people assume that it's going to be smooth sailing from now on, when in fact the Model 3, for example, has been already in production for 2 years, and they've stagnated, and they keep saying, oh, it's because we are supply constrained by our batteries, etc., and it's not true. You know how I know it's not true? Because they use the batteries for the grid projects, like in Australia and other places that don't make money. So Tesla employee one, the whistleblower that talked today on Twitter, basically said that the project in Australia doesn't make any money, and it's basically there just to pump the stock and to create brand recognition. Now, why would you do that if you need every single battery ever manufactured? And I know that there may be some differences, but it's still battery capacity that's going to waste. But if you needed battery for every single vehicle in order to sell and make money, why wouldn't you do that? Why would you basically shift the flow of batteries to other projects? It doesn't make any sense. And that's because Tesla is not supply constrained. Notice that in Q2 2020, if you look at the financials, if you look at the deliveries, it was basically China that came over and compensated. So the fact that they reached higher was because of China. And of course, they'll claim again COVID-19 impacted them, and the factory was shut down for 2 months. That's typically what they'll say. But this has been basically ongoing for a while. And for a company that grows, okay, even if this happens, you're still expected to at least sell more. I mean, if you're growing exponentially, you may get an impact. That doesn't mean that you're going to be flat or lower, right? I mean, Tesla China ramped up. They were selling. The factory was basically shut down for some time there too. They needed parts from Fremont that Fremont couldn't supply. So basically, it's just a lie on top of a lie with these people.
But it seems like Elon sort of confirmed it here. Then there's a question about what's the vision for self-driving? Are there other monetization avenues besides just the FSD software package? Elon says pretty much just FSD, that's the main thing, and is like, this is going to go down as the biggest step change in asset value in human history. Millions of cars getting upgraded, the fleet, all these cars that are already getting around with a software update, get the ability to basically become autonomous vehicles, the largest step change in asset value in history. He gives a hint saying you could have a couple million cars becoming 5x more valuable, certainly having 5x more utility, going from what, 10, 12 or 20 hours a week of driving or utility to about 60 or more. So, you know, I don't know. I thought this was a really interesting clue because even though Elon Musk says FSD functionality is at the end of this year, it's always like, okay, well, when are the robotaxis really coming? Well, he just gave you a clue because he said there'll be a couple million cars on the road by the time they flip it on. So Tesla has about 1 million on the cars on the road right now. You know, maybe they can add another 750,000 next year, and then the year after that, maybe a little over 1 million. So it's probably going to be sometime around mid-2022, 2023 when they have a couple million cars on the road, which is when Elon Musk has subliminally told us they think they're going to be able to switch on that FSD. I think.
So back to the FSD. Obviously, Elon Musk is saying a lot of things that we know not to be true. The first one of them being that the cars are going to appreciate in value just because they're able to turn on FSD. And it's interesting to note that just in the last few weeks, we found some Model S being tested with LiDAR. So if you remember, Elon Musk said that LiDAR was a crutch, that they never use it, and here we are, and they're testing LiDAR. Now, depends on what LiDAR is going to be used for. It's typically used for vehicles for autonomy by various of the other manufacturers. But if they need LiDAR, then this isn't just upgrading the software. You have to then upgrade the hardware. And so then the whole Tesla lie that, every single car with hardware 3 is basically ready for autonomy is bunk. Now, funny enough, Gali seems to at least have a little bit more realistic expectation of saying, he extrapolates, and I think he's taking Elon's words way too literally as far as, a few million cars on the road and then we'll activate FSD and that'll be 2022 according to Gali, or 2023. The reality is that every expert in the area says that, these vehicles are not going to happen in the next 5, maybe even 10 years. I mean, that's how far off the technology is. It's a very challenging technology, and Tesla is literally lying. I mean, they do worse than every other manufacturer. If you look at the performance of some of the other cars, I think on Twitter we saw a video of I think it was Waymo or Cruise maybe, and they were testing the vehicles live in real time. You can tell if you've ever used a Tesla that there's a lot of things that it can't handle, and it's nowhere near where it needs to be. So, this whole lie that the vehicles will suddenly appreciate. So, first off, the vehicle itself is never going to be appreciating. You know that, because if you buy a car, after a little while, the value drops. And by the way, Tesla vehicle values, despite the lies that are being told by Tesla bulls, some of those values drop significantly. And we know that because of people that post on the forums, and they tell you, hey, Tesla itself offered me a huge, a very, very low number for the vehicle that I have. And so you can tell from that the values don't go up. Second, this is all software. Okay, this is not hardware. That's going to appreciate. Hardware decays. Hardware, is used. If you're an engineer, you know about electromigration and things like that. I mean, things happen to hardware. Hardware depreciates. The software goes high. And right now they're promising that you're going to get that, and you're going to get a chunk of that. Will you? Because the reality is at some point, if any of this exists, and it's not, but at some point, if it were to exist, why wouldn't Tesla take advantage of it? Elon Musk keeps saying, oh, it's going to go to $100,000 for the FSD package. He has no idea. All he's doing is pushing people to buy it right now and basically push the fear of missing out on them. That's all he's doing. He doesn't know what it's going to cost. He doesn't know what the market's going to be. They don't have anywhere near what it is. But what they do have is the need to recognize that FSD revenue. And by the way, Tesla recognized a bunch of that revenue right now. Have they delivered FSD? Of course not. What they have in vehicles is enhanced autopilot, and maybe some feature here and there. But they're recognizing FSD as they can, basically saying, oh yeah, we have this or that working. Let's recognize the revenue because they're starving for cash. Okay, so this is another play. FSD is probably one of the biggest lies that Tesla talks about, and that people take at face value because they don't know enough about FSD, about autonomy, about everything that has to do with it. I would suggest go listen to the experts. Go listen to people from other companies and take a look at companies like Waymo and Cruise and the others that are actually leading in this area and what they can do. And I can tell you that from what I've seen, for example, Mobileye in Jerusalem driving around, if you take a look at what they're doing, it's leap and bounds above what Tesla can show right now. Tesla will claim, oh yeah, we got that in our back pocket. We just haven't released it alpha, and Elon is driving around and using it. That's bullcrap. That's not what's happening. They just can't show it. So I've gone over quite a bit of Gali's video, practically all of it, and the reality is, if you follow it or even listen to it yourself, you'll realize that he really skips a lot of the very important questions, the financials, the reality. He never mentioned anything about the EV credits that actually propelled the profits to where they are. That's Gali. He picks up the very cool techie stuff. Oh, where are you gonna, what batteries are you gonna use, and this and that. He's already assuming those things are happening. And that's actually the exact kind of person that Elon Musk wants and needs. Okay, a person who, forget about asking him whether X or Y is going to happen. Gali is going to ask the detailed questions, assuming that it's already happening. The assumption is already there. It's going to happen. So the question is maybe, hey, how cool is this? Or, how much money are you going to make out of it, etc., etc. That's a lot of what happens in Gali's videos, a lot of assumptions like that. So thank you very much for joining. I know this is the first video and it's pretty long, but that's what happens when you simply have a lot to discuss and basically to debunk. Feel free to keep listening to me. Follow up on Gali. Keep listening to his videos. His videos are very entertaining, and it's so fun to just go through them and basically rip every single one of his assumptions apart with real data and facts. I mean, that's a reality. Gali's just completely out there, and he has no idea what he's doing except the fact that it looks like he's benefiting and maybe making quite a bit of money off of this Tesla story. That's part of the Tesla industrial complex that I've talked about sometimes, and that's just going to keep going until this story collapses. So have a fantastic day and keep listening. Thank you very much.